Yes, Pragya, please start. Bhavna, sorry. Please unmute yourself.
Bhavna, we can start.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A very warm good afternoon to all the respected principals of the collaborating institutions, all the course coordinators, resource person, Dr. Suja Guru, scholars, literary enthusiasts, and dear participants joining us today. On behalf of the Shakespeare Society of Central India and the collaborating institutions, I, Dr. Bhavna Rai, Assistant Professor, J.M. Patel College, Bhandara, am delighted to welcome you all to Day 6 of the National Online Certificate course in Shakespearean Studies. This enriching academic initiative is the joint endeavor of Shakespeare Society of Central India and the English departments of Dr. S.C. Gulhane, PRERNA College of Commerce, Nagpur, SANTAJI Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, HISLOP College, Nagpur, J.M. Patel Arts, Commerce and Science College, Bhandara, and Dr. MADHUKARRAO WASNIK, P.W.S. Arts, Commerce and Science College, Nagpur. We are privileged to have the visionary leadership of Dr. Tapti Dey, President of the Shakespeare Society of Central India, and the dynamic support of Dr. Usha Sakure, Secretary of the Society. Their unwavering commitment to promoting literary scholarship continues to inspire programs like the present certificate course. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. Pratnya Bagde, the officiating principal of Dr. MADHUKARRAO WASNIK, P.W.S. College, Nagpur. A professor of economics, Dr. Pratnya Bagde has 33 years of teaching experience and has served as a member of various important academic bodies of the university and the Maharashtra State Higher Secondary Board. A recognized research supervisor, 8 candidates have been awarded PhD under her guidance. Dr. Bagde has honored many books. She has also committed to making difference in the society and has been a part of several social initiatives, including the Save Nag River campaign. For her academic and social contribution, she has been bestowed with several awards, prominent among them being the Rashtriya Stree Shakti Award and Gunwant Shikshak Award. Madam, I now request you to bless us with your kind words.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, respected faculty members, esteemed resource persons, and dear participants. It is a proud moment for us to gather here today for the National Online Certificate course in Shakespearean Studies, held from the 24th to the 30th of November 2025. And today is the 6th lecture in the course. This meaningful week-long course was made possible through combined efforts of the Shakespearean Society of Central India, along with the departments of English of Dr. S.C. Gulhane, PRERNA College of Commerce and Science, Nagpur, SANTAJI Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, HISLOP College, Nagpur, J.M. Patel Arts, Commerce and Science College, Bhandara, and my college, Dr. MADHUKARRAO WASNIK, P.W.S. Arts, Commerce and Science College. Their teamwork and dedication played a major role in the success of this program. I extend my sincere appreciation to Dr. Tapti Dey, President, and Dr. Usha Sakure, Secretary of the Shakespeare Society of Central India. Their guidance and support were central to the organization of this course. I also thank them for inviting our college to join as a co-host of this program. My heartfelt thanks to go our organizers, Dr. Urmila Dabi, Dr. Priya Banzari, Dr. Prashant Sheke, and Dr. Pradeep Mishra, and to our dedicated coordinators, Mrs. Nehal Rakunde, Dr. Nehal Sheikh, Dr. Malti Banga, Dr. Kartik Panikar, Dr. Sudesh Bhote, along with all faculty members from the organizing colleges. Their hard work and careful planning ensure that each session of this course proceeded smoothly and successfully. This week gave the participants a wonderful opportunity to learn from some of the most knowledgeable scholars in Shakespearean and literary studies. Each resource person brought a special viewpoint and helped us to understand Shakespeare's in new and interesting ways. Dr. Supanta Bhattacharya began the series with the topic Psychology of Power. Dr. Murli Krishna TR spoke about Shakespeare's as the Wondersmith Wonder. Dr. Shripad Bhatt shared a feminist viewpoint in his session, The Patriarchal Bard Feminist Response to a Shakespeare. Dr. Captain Indrani MR explained the supernatural in Shakespearean play. Dr. Dilip Chauhan discussed the theme post-colonial Shakespeare. Dr. Suja Group, PL, Professor, Institute of English, University of Kerala, Trivandrum, is going to talk today on topic madness, melancholy, and the mind. Mental health in Shakespearean drama. I welcome her on behalf of organizers and all the participants. And tomorrow, Dr. Subhidhar, eminent scholar in Shakespearean hermeneutic studies, will talk on Shakespeare, the Winter's Tale, and hermeneutic turn. It is matter of pride that all these sessions, all listed in the program schedule, help us understand Shakespeare's work more deeply and show how relevant they remain even today. To our participants, your interest, dedication, and active involvement have been strength of this course. I hope that knowledge you gain over these 7 days not only increase your love for Shakespeare's but also helps you think more critically and creatively. I thank the Shakespeare Society of Central India for inviting me to express my thoughts and wishes to the course. Also, I will like to express my sincere appreciation to all organizing colleges and organizing team for successfully conducting this national course. I take this opportunity to congratulate all participants and my best wishes for your future. Edward, thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind and encouraging words. So, over the last 5 days, we have had some insightful lectures on the timeless works and enduring legacy of William Shakespeare. Let us continue this journey into the world of Shakespeare together with our today's resource person, Dr. Suja Kurup. We are truly privileged to have an eminent scholar like her with us today. Dr. Suja Kurup is a professor with the Institute of English, University of Kerala, Thiruvananthapuram. In addition to her teaching responsibilities, she shares multiple responsibilities such as, to name a few, Dean, Faculty of Arts, Director, Center of Australian Studies, Director, School of English and Foreign Languages. She has more than 35 research publications to her credit and has organized 15 plus international and national conferences. A widely traveled academician, she has delivered talks and presented papers on Australian studies in Spain, Switzerland, Czechoslovakia, Australia, Sri Lanka. It is interesting to note that she has completed a Japanese language course from the University of Oxford. With great pleasure, I now invite Dr. Sujakuru to deliver her talk on madness, melancholy, and the mind, mental health in Shakespearean drama. Ma'am, please.
Thank you. I hope I am audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for those kind words of welcome. At the very outset, I'd like to thank the Shakespeare Society of Central India and the fellow academic coordinators, some of the colleges set in Nagpur, because as the conceptual tagline goes, academic collaboration. Nowadays, we think about academic collaboration as a thought engine in the new academic field, which is a generator of ideas, innovation, and intellectual momentum. So I congratulate and I appreciate the combined efforts of the academic partners in this venture. And I would also like to give a special word of thanks to Dr. Muralikrishnan Tia, who introduced me to Dr. Usha Sekure almost a month back. Thank you, Murali. So without much ado, we are embarking on two or three fascinating topics, which have fascinated us right from our student years, I suppose. Dr. Usha, I have shared the PPT with you.
Yeah.
Yes. Will someone manage from other side?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do it.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Yes, it's visible now. Thank you. So I have. When we move on to the next slide, next few slides, I have given the structure of the presentation, which is divided into almost 6 sections. First, we'll take a look at the historical and conceptual foundations regarding madness and melancholy. Then we'll take a look at madness and melancholy in Shakespearean tragedies. Then we'll move over to comic treatments of madness in Twelfth Night and As You Like It. Cultural and political dimensions will also be taken into account, where we have we'll take a gendered look at the portrayal of madness in Shakespearean, select Shakespearean plays. And also, towards the end of the talk, we'll take a look at performance-based interpretations as well as contemporary relevance of Shakespearean connection with regard to our area. So, shall we skip some of the slides? All these slides pertain to the structure of the presentation. This is how the presentation is structured. Okay, shall we move to the next one? Next, please. Okay, next, and we'll begin with historical and conceptual. Yes, precisely. Yes. So when we examine the historical connection between madness and melancholy, we find that in ancient Greek and medieval thought, melancholia was one of the 4 temperaments caused by an excess of black bile. It was not seen just as madness, but as a condition that could lead to irrational fears, delusions, withdrawal, and erratic behavior. This melancholy was often considered as a form of madness or a pathway to it. Next slide, please. Yes, when we move on to Renaissance and the early modern period, we find that writers like Shakespeare, Burton, and Montaigne, they use the terms almost interchangeably at times. For instance, Robert Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy, published in 1621, treats melancholy as a state that ranges from mild sadness, deep depression, moral conflict, and full-blown madness. Next slide, please. But interestingly enough, when we move to William Shakespeare, we find that his characters show a spectrum. I have chosen the three main protagonists we have been fascinated by. Hamlet, whose philosophical melancholy slipping into feigned or real madness. Then we have Ophelia, whose grief-induced melancholy turns into madness. And of course, we have King Lear, whose sorrow and despair trigger total mental breakdown. Next slide, please. We'll move to the second section regarding the literary understanding. In literature, melancholy often appears as reflective sorrow, existential questioning, emotional paralysis, and withdrawal from the world. And when intensified, it becomes loss of reason, hallucinations, self-destructive behavior, and total disconnection from reality. And this is often seen as the threshold of madness. And when we move to romantic and modern literature, romantic poets, as we all know, valorized melancholy as a source of creativity. For instance, we have several poems written by William Wordsworth and Keats. But they also acknowledge its darker side, which often goes unnoticed. How prolonged melancholy could deepen into mental instability. Modern literature distinguishes clinical depression from psychosis, but still depicts an emotional continuum. Next slide, please. Yeah. When we move to contemporary psychological perspective, we find that psychiatry treats them separately. Melancholy roughly aligns with major depressive disorder like sadness, temporary hopelessness, slow thinking, etc. Whereas madness aligns with deeper psychotic disorders like delusions, hallucinations, disordered thought, etc. However, depression can lead to psychosis called psychotic depression, showing that the historical link survives in some way or other in the present day clinical reality. Next slide, please. Yes. Let's move on to the Elizabethan England, where they had certain cured notions regarding mind, madness, and melancholy. Madness and melancholy are among the most powerful and recurring motifs in Shakespeare. At the same time, Elizabethan England viewed mental illness through 4 dominant lenses. I think that comprises the next slide. 4 dominant lenses. We are all familiar with the humoral theory, where melancholy was treated as a result of excess black bile. Religious worldview, madness often signified as a result of sin, possession, or even divine punishment. And when we move to moral philosophy, madness was even seen as moral failing. And then even social deviation, madness as disorder threatening the state. Next slide, please. But when we move to Elizabethan England, it was often associated with melancholy. Was often associated with intellectual people, intellectual men, not intellectual women. No, please note that we'll be revisiting that point later on. Intellectual men, artists, and thinkers, and even writers, and also lovers and scholars. So, why do intellectual men are often struck by melancholy? So, because these may be the reasons. They spend long hours in solitude, study, or meditation. Deep thinking was believed to overstrain the mind and drain the spirits. Creativity and imagination were viewed as emerging from a melancholic disposition. So the melancholic scholar became a sort of a cultural type in Elizabethan England, serious, reflective, sensitive to the complexities of life. All these characteristics we find reflected in Hamlet. Yes. And when it comes to when we move to Shakespeare, also we have characters like Hamlet, Jacques, and Antonio, from The Merchant of Venice, who represent this Renaissance idea. What is that particular Renaissance idea? Intellectual men who are burdened by thought and therefore naturally prone to they're naturally prone to sadness, reflection, and emotional heaviness. And when poets and thinkers were widely believed to have a melancholic temperament. So that would take us to Aristotle's work, Problemata, where in a particular section, he poses a striking question. Why is it that old men who have become outstanding in philosophy, poetry, politics, or the arts are evidently melancholic? So this text, Aristotle's, this particular text became foundational in Renaissance thought because it proposed that melancholy was not merely an illness, but a source of exceptional creativity, intellectual brilliance, and art. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. But yeah, when we move to William Shakespeare, his dramatic genius, in his dramatic genius, this idea has informed characters like Hamlet and Jacques, who reflect the belief that creativity, intellect, and melancholy coexist. Why artists and thinkers are, we have already taken a look at why artists and thinkers are often associated with melancholy. And when we move over to, in Shakespeare's dramatic genius, this emerges as a psychological experience, as a political language, as a gendered category, and as a performative mode of truth-telling. And we'll be revisiting all these four aspects at the second half of the presentation. Next slide, please. Yeah, let's take up Hamlet. In Hamlet, we have melancholy as philosophical condition, melancholy as feigned madness, Ophelia's madness, etc. And when we take up Hamlet, Hamlet's melancholy as a philosophical condition, Hamlet, next slide please. Hamlet is introduced as a person too much in the sun, too much in the sun. It's a striking quotation that remains in our memory long after we have read and learned Hamlet. So Hamlet is introduced as too much in the sun, and he is introduced as a Wittenberg scholar, a typical Renaissance melancholy type, whose symptoms comprise withdrawal, restlessness, self-loathing, obsessive rumination, the famous to be or not to be. So these symptoms, in fact, anticipate the modern frames of depression and even suicidal ideation. Okay, and those things are very interesting when it comes to Hamlet. And when we take up the feigned madness aspect, Hamlet's antic disposition, his strategic use of madness has to be noted at that point, because madness becomes a mask that offers the license to speak truth. It also comprises freedom from court restraints, and also it denotes a culturally understood performance mode. So all these things we find they work wonderfully in the Shakespearean tragedy Hamlet. And when we move to Ophelia's madness, her madness presents a complete contrast to Hamlet's feigned or real madness, because her madness is not philosophical. She's a woman, she's a lady, she's not an intellectual man. So naturally, her madness is not philosophical, it is traumatic, triggered by loss, triggered by patriarchal control, emotional repression. And the flower imagery which we connect with Ophelia becomes symbolic language of trauma. And we also come across a great deal of gender difference in Hamlet, because male melancholy would depict intellectual depth, whereas female madness would depict emotional excess according to the patriarchal society. So Ophelia, that is how Ophelia is present as a contrast to Hamlet. And as we all know, as the senior professors and the practicing teachers would know, there have been a lot of feminist readings into into the play Hamlet, how Ophelia's madness depicts the violence of patriarchy. And also there have been a lot of psychoanalytic readings into the play Hamlet, where to mention the most specific one, I would like to mention Hamlet's conflict between desire and duty, to be or not to be. So that conflict also comes in. Let's move to the next one. Let's take up King Lear, one of my favorite tragedies, because it still stays close to my heart. As we all grow, we near old age. As we all grow, we are aging together. So this play still remains my favorite among Shakespearean tragedies, because how beautifully Shakespeare has portrayed breakdown, trauma, and the mind under extreme extremity, so to say. So we have Lear's mental breakdown, because mental unraveling, because he was a very powerful king, and the narcissistic injury comes as a catalyst. Lear's psychological collapse begins with the wound to his own self-image, when Goneril and Regan refuse to validate his authority. So the shock of losing control and dignity destabilizes his identity. And in King Lear, we find Shakespeare that has portrayed distinctive progressive stages of madness. First stage, we have the denial, because King Lear refuses to accept the loss of power and affection, which then it changes to rage, violent outbursts against perceived betrayal. Then it moves over to disorientation, confusion, which is depicted through confusion, incoherent speech, inability to interpret events, etc. And also the final stage, hallucination or psychosis, complete break from reality, especially in the storm and trial scenes. So I'm not delving in deep to the storm scene. The external storm, as we all learned, the storm scene, there we have the external storm, which equals the inner turbulence. And also the stripping, Lear's removal of garments signifies shedding the illusions of kingship and authority and all other related things. Let's move to the Fool and Truth. The Fool and Truth, the Fool is a very important character in King Lear, as we all know. Fool acts as a cognitive anchor throughout the play. When the Fool disappears, Lear crosses into full psychological collapse. And when we move to, through riddles, the Fool, through his riddles, songs and irony, he forces Lear to confront the consequences of dividing the kingdom. And the Fool also operates as a stabilizing presence, emotionally, intellectually, and morally, guiding Lear through early stages of disorientation through the storm. And when we take up the third character, the second character, Edgar, or Poor Tom, his feigned madness, Edgar adopts the person of Poor Tom, drawing on the real subculture of Bedlam beggars who wandered the countryside. His performance includes characteristic speech patterns, disjointed, ritualistic, and filled with demonology, mirroring early modern beliefs about insanity. By staging madness, Edgar reveals it as performative and tied to social scripts, suggesting that madness can be constructed, learned, and even acted. So his disguise exposes how society labels and manages the mentally ill, while also contrasting with Lear's genuine deteriorating mental condition. So when we do some modern psychological readings of Lear, we find that Lear's emotional trajectory aligns with the symptoms of traumatic psychological breakdown. The four stages I have already mentioned: shock, rage, dissociation, disorientation, hallucinations, and eventual cognitive fragmentation. And some scholars have interpreted King Lear's behavior as late onset dementia, especially given his age, his impaired judgment, the acute paranoia that he suffers from, and also increasing linguistic incoherence. So Shakespeare, through this play, I think he has been anticipating modern understandings of how extreme stress, extreme emotional betrayal, and social isolation can accelerate cognitive decline. Okay, let's move to the next slide, please. Yes, in this section, we are dealing with Macbeth, his hallucinations, guilt, paranoia, and the criminal mind. Because when we take into consideration Macbeth's visions, we have the dagger hallucination scene. Dagger hallucination, he finds the floating dagger, which externalizes Macbeth's murderous desire. It also functions as a psychological projection, a moment where imagination anticipates action. So this hallucination marks the split between Macbeth's intention and deed, where the mind becomes an unreliable guide. And when we move to the appearance of Banquo's ghost, it appears, we have all noted that it appears only to Macbeth. Banquo's ghost thus embodies the guilt that Macbeth cannot suppress. And the banquet scene dramatizes Macbeth's inner torment erupting into public space. And when we move to Lady Macbeth, the famous sleepwalking scene and her famous dialogue, "Out, damn sport." So all these two sections highlight her obsessive behavior. Compulsive hand washing reflects fixation of an imagined stain of blood, and also through her in her dialogue, in her monologue, perhaps she is revealing there's a great deal of traumatic unveiling that takes place. She involuntarily repeats fragments of past events, which may be seen as an early modern dramatization of PTSD-like symptoms. And also the sense of dissociation. Lady Macbeth speaks of actions without recognizing her own agency, showing a split between the conscious self and the hidden guilt. So this Lady Macbeth embodies the psychological cost of ambition, moral suppression, and emotional denial. And when we take up, especially pertaining to the play Macbeth, when we take up madness as moral and political consequence, we find that Macbeth's rise to tyranny causes a poisoned mental atmosphere throughout Scotland. There is a rising level of like emotions like fear, suspicion, and also delusion. So Shakespeare has used madness not merely as an individual to signify an individual collapse, but also as a sign of ethical decay and political disorder. So thus, both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth illustrate how unrestrained ambition and moral violation can dismantle a human being's psychological stability. Next slide, please. So here we are dealing with Othello. Othello's psychology, how he was presented as a well-poised, rational general at the beginning of the play, and how that personality becomes fragmented as we go through the play. And jealousy is presented as a green-eyed monster, which personifies emotion, as personified emotion. The metaphor actually personifies jealousy as a force acting on Othello, emphasizing how the emotion colonizes and destabilizes his thinking. And when we take up Iago's mind games, we find that psychological manipulation works as a plot engine throughout. His strategic withholding of information, planting seeds of doubt, false assurances, and also suggestive hints rather than direct accusations. So Iago's manipulation becomes is a very carefully done manipulation, because it's a step-by-step process where we have ambiguity. He uses innuendos, and he also stages evidence. So we have this modern connection where Iago's tactics may be seen with alongside contemporary understandings of coercive control, which we very often find among domestic settings: coercive control, emotional abuse, and also abuser-victim dynamics. So Iago may be seen as a modern extension of such contemporary understandings of all these three things. And Shakespeare captures beautifully, if I may use that adjective, he beautifully captures how manipulation exploits a person's deepest insecurities. Because in Othello's case, and just trying to refresh your memory, in Othello's case, he is already vulnerable. He is suffering from racial vulnerability, outsider anxiety, which we all feel at times, I suppose, and also marital inexperience. So he's already vulnerable, and this person's deepest insecurities are played upon by Iago's mind games. Marks a point where mental stress overwhelms bodily function. Shakespeare uses this episode to dramatize psychosomatic breakdown, where emotional turmoil manifests physically. So as we all know, mind and body are interconnected. Psychiatrists tell us more of such things nowadays. And also constructed madness. Othello does not descend into madness spontaneously. Iago manufactures his Iago's thought engine actually manufactures Othello's mental collapse. So jealousy, suspicion, and rage are carefully engineered responses throughout the play. And Othello's final state, when he breaks down as an individual, as an irrational, impulsive, emotionally unstable human being, it is actually the product of prolonged psychosocial manipulation. Shall we move to the next slide, please? Yes, Titus Andronicus. When we take up Titus actually moves from rigid Roman stoicism to emotional extremity, displaying uncontrollable grief, rage, and erratic behavior. His reactions like killing his own son, hysterical laughter, serving Temora her own sons baked into a pie, show a psyche pushed beyond moral and emotional limits. And Shakespeare has used Titus to explore how prolonged suffering and humiliation dismantle rational judgment. And when we take up Lavinia's trauma and muteness, her mutilation becomes one of Shakespeare's starkest depictions of psychological and bodily trauma. Her muteness, in fact, when read along modern terms, would symbolize the silencing of the victims of sexual violence, which we find all around the globe. Trauma rendered unspeakable. Trauma rendered unspeakable. And the play's emphasis on her bodily gestures show how trauma produces non-verbal, fragmented forms of communication. Lavinia's condition reflects the Renaissance's belief that severe violation can produce madness or distraction within double inverted commas, madness or distraction. And madness is also, there is also an inevitable connection between, during Shakespearean times, there was an inevitable connection between madness and the culture of revenge. Madness is portrayed as inseparable from cycles of revenge. So that is also depicted in this particular play, Titus Andronicus, where Shakespeare presents a world where trauma and vengeance, a cycle of revenge, can create a climate of collective psychological breakdown. Shall we take up the next slide? Yeah, we are moving on to some more pleasant aspects of Shakespeare when we deal with comedy and madness. I've chosen, there are plenty of examples. I've chosen only 12th Night and As You Like It, the more popular comedies, where we have in 12th Night we have Malvolio, where he becomes the target of an extended practical joke engineered by Maria, Sir Toby, and others. The forged letter exploits his vulnerabilities, his ambition, self-righteousness, and longing for social mobility. And his confinement in the dark room that actually resembles early modern punitive treatment of mental illness. Shakespeare stages a comedic plot that ultimately and simultaneously resembles psychological torture. And we also find that this situation raises some ethical questions. When does comedy become cruelty? Because his final vow, "I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you," it reveals deep injury rather than mere comic closure. It moves to a deeper level than mere comic closure. And when we examine the early exploration of mental suffering within a comic framework, we find that Malvolio's humiliation anticipates later understandings of gaslighting and emotional abuse. The play's final mood is ambiguous, joy for others, but it still remains unresolved trauma for Malvolio himself. Next slide, please. Yes, let's take up comedy and madness in As You Like It. Jacques represents the quintessential melancholic observer. He embodies a Renaissance aesthetic of melancholy, not pathological, but contemplative and intellectual, of course. He's fascinated by emotional sorrow and uses it as a lens to critique the world. His famous "All the World's a Stage," that particular speech, reveals a deeply reflective consciousness bordering on existential insight. So we also find his melancholy is performative. He cultivates it carefully, turning sorrow into identity. Shakespeare contrasts the stylized melancholy with the genuine emotional suffering seen in tragedies, highlighting its theatricality. Next slide, please. Yes, we are moving on to the. We are slowly moving on to the concluding part, where we do somewhat a detailed study of gender, madness, and cultural roots. Because I had earlier promised that we would be revisiting these aspects. I had promised during the introductory session. So there's a clear-cut difference between women's madness and men's madness. I have already mentioned that. Because when we consider women's madness, let's take up Ophelia, Lady Macbeth, and Juliet's feigned death. We find that in women's cases, madness is tied to sexuality, repression, and patriarchal control. Female suffering is seen as it is medicalized in ways male suffering is not. Because in the case of Ophelia, her madness emerges from emotional grief, romantic conflict, and patriarchal limitations. Her songs and her flowers represent a symbolic language of female trauma. And when we take up Lady Macbeth, sleepwalking and obsessive behaviors, which we have already discussed, show how guilt and repression manifest as psychological breakdown. And Juliet's feigned death is a theatrical performance of madness or death-like withdrawal, which is a symbol of entrapment within patriarchal cultures, patriarchal structures or patriarchal cultures. And we find that there's a different way of treating female suffering, medicalization of female suffering. It often happens. Women's emotional stress is often presented as hysteria or uncontrolled passion, aligning with Renaissance medical views. Male suffering is rarely interpreted this, but female suffering is quickly pathologized. So that's what we find. Shakespeare exposes how society interprets, diagnoses, and punishes female psychological expression. Let's take up men's madness, which presents a more privileged framework, so to say. Madness in male characters is often portrayed as philosophical or intellectual. We have Hamlet as an example, political or cosmic. Let's take the example of King Lear. Tragic or heroic struggle in the case of Othello or even Macbeth. So these are some of the key examples when we discuss men's madness as portrayed in Shakespeare. Hamlet's melancholy is coded as intellectual depth. Lear's madness is framed as the crisis of an aged king. Othello's breakdown is shaped by manipulation, deep psychological conflict, accentuated by his own emotional vulnerabilities. So that's how it is portrayed. Their madness, feigned or real, their madness is not at all portrayed, is not at all pathologized. It is not at all medicalized, so to say. So we find this so-called double standard. Male madness would signify profound insight, profound complexity of thought, etc. Whereas female madness would signify emotional excess, hysteria, instability of mind, fragility, etc. So Shakespeare mirrors and sometimes critiques these Renaissance cultural assumptions through his portrayal of those characters. And of course, when we take up Michel Foucault, in his numerous essays and numerous volumes of books, he had portrayed madness as truth-telling. He had argued that madness historically functions as a space where forbidden truths emerge. Shakespeare's plays anticipate this idea. We have already discussed that. The mad often see more clearly than the sane. We have the wonderful example of Edgar or Poor Tom in King Lear. Madness becomes a channel for truth that social norms silence. So we have Hamlet's antic disposition, which allows him to speak truths about corruption and decay in Denmark, which gets reflected even in his conversations with his mother. Lear's insanity clarifies the emptiness of power and human vulnerability. Ophelia's songs reveal hidden realities about court politics, gender oppression, and personal grief, etc. And we have, of course, the fool in King Lear, who uses wit and madness, feigned madness, to articulate hard truths. So we find madness is used as a kind of disruption, but at the same time, it exposes the fault lines within that order. So that is how Shakespeare has used madness. It becomes a form of resistance, insight, or even forced revelation. Next slide, please. Yes, performance and psychological realism. When we find contemporary theatre increasingly draws on clinical psychology to render Shakespeare's characters with deeper realism. For instance, Lear may be represented as admitted to a dementia ward, or Hamlet as a person who is diagnosed with bipolar patterns of thought, or Lady Macbeth as a trauma survivor. So that is how modern staging and performance patterns have portrayed these characters. So directors and actors, they use modern mental health vocabularies to make the plays resonate with present-day audiences. So some of the common psychological frameworks used in productions are PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, clinical depression, dissociative states, hallucination techniques, etc. Especially when it comes to Macbeth's dagger and Bango's ghost, very often we find them associated with hallucination techniques, shadow projections through distorted audio, sudden lighting shifts. So those things are used to represent hallucination and related things. And we often find that many modern companies, they consult psychologists, trauma specialists, dementia experts, and psychiatrists to bring more reality into their performance. And this ensures sensitive, accurate portrayals and promotes ethical representations of mental illness on stage. As I already mentioned, Lear represented as is finally admitted in a dementia ward or a care home or a hospital, or as a person afflicted with late onset dementia or an Alzheimer-like condition. So that's it. And we have Hamlet presented as a person experiencing bipolar mood cycles, his depressive collapse in, oh, this too solid flesh would melt. So it highlights Hamlet as a mind struggling with instability, not just philosophical melancholy. And Lady Macbeth is also seen as a when seen through the lens of trauma and dissociation. Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking scene can be viewed through the lens of trauma and dissociation. And her obsessive hand washing becomes a ritualized attempt to manage overwhelming guilt as well. So these are the some of the common psychological frameworks used in the present-day productions of Shakespearean plays. Next slide. We are drawing to a close. This is the last section. Contemporary relevance. Why the question we often ask? Why Shakespeare still matters to mental health conversations? He actually helps us discuss grief, trauma, depression, and identity crisis. For instance, next slide, please. I think I have included some of the quotations. Yeah. For example, let's take a look at how Shakespeare gives us a language for emotion. So, in the modern psychiatric practices also, the counselor, he remains silent for a very long period. He merely listens to the patient, so-called patient, or the client, so to say, what the patient has to say. So he may devote many hours of listening to what the disturbed person has to say. So in fact, Shakespeare had given us much earlier. He had given us a language for emotion. So when sorrows come, they come not in single spies but in battalions. So it fully captures the overwhelming cumulative nature of distress, similar to modern descriptions of depressive spirals. And we also find give sorrow words. The grief that does not speak whispers the overwrought heart and bids it break. So this actually anticipates modern therapeutic wisdom, where unexpressed grief can be psychologically destructive. So that's why Shakespeare still matters to the present day mental health conversations, I would say. So next slide, please. Yes, how he has given us the modern, these are the insights that these plays would offer to the modern 21st century world that we inhabit now. So, coping mechanisms. Characters use, if you examine some of the characters, they use a range of coping mechanisms, like Hamlet indulges in rumination, philosophical reflection. Ophelia, she indulges in symbolic speech through songs and flowers. And Lear, his regression, confession, emotional catharsis, etc. These reveal both healthy and maladaptive ways of responding to emotional strain. And there has always been this stigma around mental illness. Characters are, in Shakespearean plays, we find characters judged, mocked, or punished for madness, reflecting the ongoing social stigma. To mention a few examples, Malvolio's humiliation, Ophelia's treatment, or even Edgar's disguise as poor Tom, they mirror modern discussions about the marginalization of mental illness. When we take up the third aspect, breakdown under social pressure, external forces, it may come in many forms, like political power, patriarchy, warfare, or even family authority, often trigger psychological collapse. Shakespeare suggests that mental distress is not only individual, but socially produced, which is very, very pertinent nowadays in the present day India and around the globe overall, I would say. And when we take up community and healing, Shakespeare recognizes that community can support or destroy mental stability. Characters fare better when supported. We find Cordelia and Lear. and it can turn worse when isolated. We have many examples. To mention a few, we have Othello, Lady Macbeth, Ophelia. So this mirrors modern understandings of social support system networks and mental well-being, where community has a major role to play. Yes, next slide, please. So there are only 2 slides remaining. Yes, I understand there are only 2 slides. So to conclude the presentation, Shakespeare's portrayal of madness and melancholy is multidimensional. We find, I think I have expatiated it in the next slide also. Yes, next slide, please. Yeah. These are the various multiple dimensions through which Shakespeare has portrayed madness: psychological, ethical, social, political, and even gendered. I don't think I have time to expand on all these aspects. Let's move to the next slide. The human mind in Shakespeare. His characters reveal that the human mind is fragile, complex, vulnerable to loss, grief, ambition, and manipulation. His dramas still speak to us about modern health discourses, offering empathy, understanding, and profound insight into human suffering. Next slide. Yes. And why Shakespeare is relevant, especially with regard to madness, mind, and mental health in the contemporary world, because he has portrayed, continue to enrich modern mental health conversations by offering empathy for suffering, insight into emotional and psychological struggle, language for grief, despair, and healing, and also he has given us a deep understanding how society can construct and respond to mental illness. So his portrayals of inner turmoil remain some of the most profound in world literature, bridging the Renaissance and the contemporary world with enduring emotional truth. Thank you. Thank you for your patience listening. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Based on today's session, we can conclude that Shakespeare's plays reveal remarkably sensitive and perceptive depiction of mental health. Long before the emergence of modern psychology, his characters grapple with grief, guilt, anxiety, trauma, and questions of identity, the struggles that continue to resonate even today. I especially would like to mention the particular section where you have mentioned about the male and female madness. Being male madness portrayed as philosophical and female madness portrayed as pathological. So thank you very much, ma'am, for this very good and insightful session. We will now move on to the question and answer segment. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand or type it in the chat box. I guess each and everyone present here are right now processing or observing or absorbing all those things which we have we get to know today of Shakespeare.
Bhavna, there is one question in the chat box.
There is one question.
Yes, sir.
What can
okay. What can one learn from the madness expressed in Shakespeare's literature?
Yeah. I think that is my talk has been all about these things. What can one learn from madness expressed in Shakespearean literature?
Yes.
I thought the answer is implicit in the presentation we have had so far. Or Arvind, do you have any specific question in your mind?
Arvind, you can unmute yourself.
Because the concluding session and also the preceding sections had been dealing with what we have what are the takeaway from Shakespeare's tragedies as well as comedies, especially the portrayal of madness. So, if you had a specific question, it would have been nice.
Actually,
Arvind, you
yes,
can,
ma'am.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes, sir. Am I audible here now?
yes.
You are all.
Ma'am, actually, I'm asking you that actually the Shakespeare expresses madness through his literatures. But what can one learn from reading this his literature? That what is meant by exact madness that we should use in our daily life? Means what lessons we can take from Shakespeare through his madness expressed through his literature? That I want to know that. Means suppose, for example, we are the students of literature. After reading Shakespeare madness, then what can we learn from that madness? That should we use that madness in our daily life?
Yeah, I think you have thrown more light into the question. Yeah, I think Shakespeare's portrayal of madness has a great deal of contemporary relevance because we have been, if we take up statistics across India and even around the globe, the number shows us that there are more and more cases of mental illness, not severe, but ranging from mild and severe level of mental illness. So I think Shakespeare has already been giving us some measures to treat these various levels of madness. I have mentioned only a few examples. For in the case, he has given grief. He has shown us how grief and sorrow, when given a language, can alleviate the level of madness or melancholy or even ill mental health. There are various levels of, there is a huge spectrum when it comes to mental health. So I think if we read Shakespeare's tragedies and comedies in an intelligent manner, he has already, solutions are already there. We should talk, even among the family circles. We find when we have dinner or lunch together, especially on a weekend, everybody seems to be hooked on to a mobile phone. So why can't we keep away the mobile phones for at least for 1 full hour and talk with one another, father, mother, and the 2 or 3 children in the family? Give language to your feelings. Outsiders may find it as a nonsensical talk, but language matters a lot. Give expression to your emotions. Express yourself. Where do we express ourselves other than the family circles? And I think we need to have discussion panels in English departments also, because very often during the first 18 years of my service, I had been working in an autonomous college, Fatima National College, situated 75 kilometers from Trivandrum. But we had a beautiful working atmosphere there, which helped me survive after undertaking the long travel to that college. So we should have conversations, we should keep on the conversations rolling on. So I think Shakespeare has hidden many remedies for the modern scenario, psychological scenario in his place. So I think that is what I had dealt towards the second section of the presentation.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Amol Mende,
I didn't like your
he
beginning.
was raising the hand. Amol, you want to ask something, Amol?
But Stephen Smith has said that.
Yeah, even I can't understand. It is,
Thank you,
Stephen,
Stephen, for that.
yeah.
But thank you. At least you spoke out your mind. I'm happy for. I feel happy for that. That's really good.
Amol, you want to ask something?
Yeah.
Please unmute yourself. If you want to ask any question. I guess there are no more questions now. Okay. So moving ahead towards our last section of the session. On behalf of all the organizing institutions, I am truly honored to deliver the vote of thanks for the session. First and foremost, I express my heartfelt gratitude to our resource person, Dr. Suja Kurup ma'am, whose inspiring words and insights have truly enriched us. We are grateful for the time and effort you invested in sharing your expertise with us. Thank you, ma'am. I
Thank you.
extend special thanks to all the respected principals of the collaborating institutions whose guidance and constant encouragement made this session possible. A word of appreciation to all the course coordinators for their constant support and hard work behind the scenes. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the faculty members and participants present here for their enthusiastic involvement. Your energy and engagement make this session meaningful. Finally, our big thank you to our technical team whose efforts ensured that everything ran smoothly. Once again, thank you very much for making this session a success. And sir, shall we conclude?
Yeah, Sakura madam.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can we close the session?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Suza ma'am. It was a wonderful session. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Yeah.
Yes. So, with the permission of the chair, I declare that the session concludes here. Have a wonderful day ahead. Good day.
Thank you, Bhavna. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.